All right, guys, welcome. What's up? Hey on YouTube, hey on Facebook, wherever you are. I'm just excited to be here with you as always. Let me just exit out here. I actually never look at the Facebook screen while I'm recording, so I don't see people pop in and out because that stresses me out. Because I'm always watching to see who's in there. So instead, I just broadcast from my heart, and then I go back and look at all the comments later and respond. But guys, here's what's up. Okay, this is super cool. This is groundbreaking science I'm bringing you. You may know that I studied psychology in undergrad, but I just personally never felt like I wanted to spend 5 years in grad school studying some small little statistical study just to try and get statistical significance, because my brain is pretty extrapolational, and so I would rather experiment on my own life and then draw conclusions based on that kind of anecdotally and then offer them to you for your own life. So rather than being a statistician, I like to be an extrapolationist, taking one case study of myself and then sharing it with the world. And so, first of all, I would like to be a case study of love for the world, and I want to share that love with you and that energy and enthusiasm and kindness. So please take it into your heart. Let's all be positive, uplifted today, just happy, excited. Okay, but with that said, we're going to talk about some real stuff today that is super cool. And I don't know how long I'll talk on this. My voice will probably get tired. I'm still recovering from a little bit of a bug. But the topic today is, could your screen addiction or other addictive behavior in your life be just as real as the addiction to alcohol or heroin or some kind of hard drug? Okay, I'm telling you that this is a thing. This is Woody Reaney. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician. Please don't take this as medical advice. Please don't take this as therapy. I'm not a licensed physician in any way. This is just me telling a story. This is not licensed medical advice. But I'm telling you that in my experience of my own life, my addiction to video games and certain screen behaviors, sorry, I got something in my eye, so I just gotta kind of get this out of here real quick. My addiction to certain screen behaviors is actually causing identical symptoms as what I've chosen as my example, which is alcohol dependence. Now, what's really interesting is I haven't had a drink of alcohol this year, and I've never had a problem with alcohol. So I don't know what it's like to be alcohol dependent from firsthand, but there are lots of good resources online. And so I started thinking about this idea about 4 or 5 months ago. Actually, my podcast episode 97 was on this. I talked about how my screen addiction was really a lot like alcohol. And what I mean is I was experiencing the same dopamine rush. I was experiencing the same neurological depressive symptoms, and I was experiencing the same withdrawal and dependence symptoms as the educational information I had looked up on alcohol was, but for me it was video games on screens. It was video games or watching video games. So I just want to explore this a little bit and give you guys some backstory about my life, my personal life, right? All this. And so the backstory is, for the past 5 weeks, I've been getting progressively sicker until last week on Saturday, 5 days ago, I broke out in a rash all over my body. Okay, all over my body, to no known cause, and went to the ER and they said, you can breathe fine, you're fine, take some prednisone. Took some prednisone, it slowly got better, went to the allergist, did all my medical follow-ups. But the point is, I was breaking out and sick, and I'm convinced that it is majority anxiety induced. So how cool is that? We got this scientific hypothesis that I had anxiety-induced rash, I've had anxiety-induced illness, and I'm not saying that I didn't have some kind of physical bug, but I got COVID tested, that was negative, so it wasn't COVID, it was just some kind of little fever bug or something, and then got a rash, no problem breathing, no anything, just on the outside, came right after I peaked in playing too many video games and trying to stream my video games online, right? Kind of interesting here. And so I want to talk about this for a second, this idea of drugs can be anything you use to get an artificial dopamine hit because real life isn't doing it, okay? So a drug, again, I just want to say this to you, is anything you use, okay, that gets you an artificial dopamine hit, but like dopamine meaning the chemical, happy chemical in your brain, right? Like your endogenous morphine, your endorphins, whatever type of chemical it is, right? Your happy chemicals in your brain. And so for me, what that means, right, is I would play video games. And I would really enjoy it. Here's the thing, right? I'm not abusing alcohol. I'm not trying to run away from the world. I would just think, man, I'm kind of bored. Like broadcasting is nice. All this stuff is nice. But frankly, I'm bored. And these video games are really intense and strategic and tactical. And I really enjoy them, okay? I really enjoy these video games. So I would play some. I'd play Magic online or Legends of Runeterra, these card games online. And I've been doing this my whole life. But the past 5 weeks, I started playing this new game, Legends of Runeterra, and I'm playing it, right? Whatever. And then all of a sudden, I started getting sick, and I started getting more anxious, and I started playing more and more and more and more. And then to the point where last week I got so sick that suddenly I was sitting there, I had this horrible acid reflux, I was in a rash, all this, because I had played so much video games that had just wrecked my nervous system. And so I just want to talk about that for a second, right? That I was suffering from screen addiction dependence. And you could be too. It's extremely likely that there's something in your life that you use as a drug to give you an artificial hit, an artificial high that then kind of affects the rest of your life. So just think about that for a second. Think about maybe, think about some screen-related thing that is for you. For me, it was YouTube videos of video games and then playing the video games. For you, it could be the news. For you, it could be Facebook scrolling, Instagram. Think of some behavior that you do and you tend to overdo it even when you know you're overdoing it, right? The reason I found out that my screen addiction was exactly like alcohol dependency is because I watched this really cute video that I link in my happiness essay for today, right? If you go, I have linked in the description of this video the essays on human happiness. I wrote number 10 today. It's super detailed about all this stuff, crazy detailed, super awesome. And so check that out, right? It's really awesome. And one thing you can get out of essay number 10 on human happiness is this video on alcohol dependency. And so I watched it, and this video on alcohol dependency was teaching me. It said, what alcohol dependency is normally your body is in homeostasis, which means your heart rate, everything else, it's all normal. You're relaxed, you feel whatever. And this cute little video, right, on YouTube told me that, but what if you have a secret crush that calls you? You have some secret crush on somebody that makes your heart race, and they text you. They send you a text like, do you want to do something tonight? And suddenly you freak out, and your heart rate starts going up, and everything starts getting excited, right? But then what happens? After a little while, your heart rate goes back down. Everything comes back down to normal. And that's how your body generally exists. And it generally exists in this homeostasis, just meaning everything is simple, your heart is relaxed, your body's relaxed, you feel normal, okay? But what happens with people with drug dependencies, such as alcohol, right, is the video says this, right? You can just go watch this video by these osmosis people. It's a wonderful video. I'm just summarizing it for you so you can get the point if you're just watching this, right? What happens to alcohol dependency is, let's say every day at 5 o'clock you drink in the kitchen, okay? Then every day at 5 o'clock, your body understands that you're going to drink a depressant, right? You're going to do something that depresses your nervous system. And so your body counteracts that by getting really hyperactive and getting really excited and getting really up. So that way you stay in your homeostasis kind of, because the alcohol is depressing your system, but your body's naturally inflating everything. Now the problem is, if you try to quit drinking, what happens is that you go to 5 o'clock in the kitchen and there's no alcohol while you're cooking, and suddenly your body feels anxious. Your heart's fluttering, your chest is tight, you're sweating, you're anxious, all this stuff. And it's because your body still is trying to kick everything up a notch, even though you are not drinking alcohol to bring yourself back down. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is because I have had the exact same symptoms with screen addiction my whole life. And I wonder if you've had this. Whether it's, your addictive social media checking, maybe it's your email, maybe it's your work. This can be your work too. This doesn't have to be like a recreational thing. It could be work. Whatever it is, right? Or it could be TV, or it could be video games like it is for me. If you're a similar demographic to me, like a young guy who's an introvert and smart, you might really also like video games, and you might have the same thing, where I would want to play video games, and if I didn't play, I would feel so anxious. I am on day 3 right now of no video games, like total clean 14 detox, like on my own program, and I'll be honest, the past 3 days, I've just been having a consistent state of panic attack. Like even right now, I'm having like mild anxiety, but I've been waking up. Today I didn't get out of bed till 9:20. I just laid in bed as long as I could because I was having a panic attack. Like last night, panic attack. All the time, panic attack, right? And my body is totally fine, and I'm actually happy as a person. But I'm having this, I'm out of homeostasis because I'm dependent on these screens to artificially kind of numb me down from my natural state. And so since the screens were numbing me down, I've been all high and uppity and like anxious for 3 days, okay? And so I know I'm just kind of like gobbledygooking at you from everywhere. Let me take a drink and then just keep going into this because it's really cool and really interesting. It might help you out a lot. But so I guess my point to you, right, is what addictive thing do you have where you might be actually dependent? I want you to start thinking about it as like, it's so cool, right? And I'll be your example. I'll share all my like scary stories or my vulnerable stories because I don't mind being them for you guys because I love you all and I want you to be successful and happy and have these enriched, beautiful lives like I want to have, okay? And so for me, right, past 5 weeks, like I said, I've been playing the video games and I would kept telling myself, I gotta quit, right? Like I've been watching Grey's Anatomy with my wife and, one of the doctors, Richard Weber, who's like the chief of surgery at the beginning of the show, he's an alcoholic, and then he gets back on the alcohol in the middle of the show, and that's like a storyline, and he keeps saying, I'm gonna quit, but he doesn't. I would have the same thing with the video games, man. I would say, I'm gonna quit. I know this is bad. I know I'm an addict. But then I would have just a little bit more. And the reason is, it is so jarring, so unbelievably jarring to be out of homeostasis when your body is so uppity because you've been dependent for so long that all you want to do is take a drink, or in my case, play a little video games to get yourself back down, all right? And so think about whether there's something like that for you, whether it's your phone or whatever, where you just feel the urge to pull it out. But then here's the thing I really want to share, which is so cool, is that your addictive behaviors, like mine, have a purpose. And so this is something I got into at the end of my happiness essay, but I want to kind of hit you with this here, is that anything you're doing that's maladaptive, right? If you have an addictive thing, like let's say, maybe something simpler, like you're overweight and you need to lose weight, right? That's probably a significant number of y'all out there. That's even, I look skinny, but I'm still a little puffy and I think I could spare to get in a little bit of better shape. And so maybe you think you need to lose weight, but you're not doing it. Well, everything you're doing, even eating too much or even not exercising, all of those behaviors, right, are meant to keep you in the zone you're comfortable in, and they've had some kind of adaptive function, some kind of useful function. Maybe when you were in a really stressful situation, you ate and it made you feel better, and so now you always do that, right? That eating, even though you think, I need to be able to lose weight, I should be able to lose weight, blah, 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 and you're beating yourself up because you should be able to lose weight, but really that eating is serving an important purpose, which is shielding you from emotional fears. And so what you got to do is learn how to get past the emotional fears, not worry about the eating. For me, it's the same way. I've been thinking about these video games, and what's been fascinating is, like I'm being transparent with you, I've been on this 5-week bender, essentially. A bender is referred to as like a drug term when someone goes on drugs and is not getting rest, sleep, whatever. I've been on this 5-week bender of video games that I could not get myself off of, even though I am an expert on digital addiction, and I knew that I was in it, and I was conscious of it the whole time. So that's pretty wild, right? And it's pretty wild to be transparent with you and share that, but it's okay because being on the inside gave me these new insights and new experience that I can now share with you, which is super duper cool, right? It's cool that I get to share it with you and give you new insights. And so one of the things that happened to me is that I finally realized a couple of things with this new last bout with addiction. So whatever your addictive thing is, think of it in your head. Let's process this together and see if either of my realizations could maybe help you just spark a similar realization. Number one was I finally hit kind of a rock bottom, which is that for a long time I'd been telling myself, I shouldn't play too many video games. But on the other hand, I'd been saying, but it's kind of fun and it's kind of stimulating for my brain and I'm really good at it and it serves a purpose. So maybe it's okay, maybe it's not okay. And I knew it wasn't okay. I knew it was hurting me. But this time, think about what happened. Mid-June, I start playing this game. End of June, early July, I go on vacation with my family. I'm sick the whole vacation. I'm not excited to be around my family. I'm lying in bed all day. I don't go out to the beach. I'm not happy and enthusiastic, so it ruined my family vacation. I come back, I get a fever, I get sick, which again, could be some kind of bug, but also I get sicker than my wife. I get sicker than the rest of my family who had the same thing I had. I'm, ill. I'm still playing more of the games, right? So I'm doing all that. Then I end up last week breaking out in a rash all over my body, like sick, like whatever, right? And I'm telling you, anxiety induced, right? And I'm not just making this up, and I'm also going to all my doctor's appointments and doing all the normal doctorly things, but I'm not making this up because I've had this in the past, and you may have too if you have anxiety-induced stuff, right? In 2016, I got an endoscopy, which is where they, go down your throat and just check out your stomach, because I had such bad reflux and heart palpitations and stuff. Dude, I had mild-ass reflux. I had nothing in there. They're like, no, you're totally clean. Just anxiety. Last year or the year before, I forget, either early 2019 or late 2018, I got a CT scan for a potential hernia because my bowel, my stomach was hurting so bad. Not my stomach, but my lower groin. It felt like something was popping out. It was just constipation, but I was just really anxious about it, right? And again, constipation, that kind of stuff comes from anxiety. And so I've had multiple large medical tests on stuff when it was just anxiety induced. Anxiety induced from this negative habit. But yet still I would tell myself, I still want to play video games or I still want to do this. But this time I'm telling you, Saturday night and Sunday night, Sunday night actually, I was lying in bed, I had gotten my medication, I'd been to the ER the previous night, I'm lying in bed, I still have this rash all over my body because it hasn't quite gone away yet. I have horrible acid reflux from something I've eaten or the pills I've taken to help with stuff, and I am miserable, and I'm sitting in bed at 1 a.m. not asleep in a stack of pillows thinking, this is rock bottom. This is Woody, you are an addict, and this is rock bottom, and you are a video game addict. And so I had my come to Jesus or whatever moment where I was just at rock bottom. And yet, I think this is what we can learn, is I was doing it while I was self-aware. So most of the time when you're in an anxiety spiral, you're panicking, right? You're upset, you're worried. I used to worry that I was going to die when I had health issues. I used to worry about all this stuff. This time I wasn't worried. I was actually happy because I was following my own mental health 101 procedures, and I was actually still intentionally, consciously uplifted and knowing what I was going through, even as I was in this rock bottom. And so the first thing that happened is, you're going to notice a big shift in all my stuff moving forward with more love and more honestly. Like, I'm going to say the words I love you about 20 times more than I used to. Like, I love you guys. And that's because I came to this crucial point where I realized that there were only two options. I could either continue to live the way I've been living, which is a pretty good life, but with video game addiction, and I could slowly spiral and have more and more health issues, which are all anxiety induced, and never achieve anything, and constantly put stress on my relationship, and just get worse and worse and worse and sicker. Or I could share all the love I have with the world and be honest and open and not care what anybody thinks and be totally outgoing and totally transparent. Those were really the only options. Because part of the reason I was going back to the video games is because I was scared to be totally transparent in my videos, in my content and everything. And so I was making more generic stuff and uppity stuff. But the truth is I wasn't saying everything I thought, right? I wasn't saying everything I thought. I was kind of sugarcoating it for you guys to make life a little easier for you when I really needed to be totally honest. And so that's one thing that's going on, and that's really cool, right? But then the other thing that I realized, right, in addition to that kind of ultimatum moment, so lesson one is you kind of do have to hit rock bottom, and I finally realized that, like, wow, this will continue to get worse, and I will develop all kinds of physical conditions that are totally anxiety-induced if I don't solve this video game addiction right now and solve the underlying problem that's causing this. Second thing I did is yesterday I was sitting in bed thinking, and I was having fun thinking about all this. Here I am, right? And I'm sitting in bed yesterday, like having my coffee, like 11 a.m., just relaxing, and also simultaneously having a panic attack from withdrawal symptoms. Because again, when you take away the depressing substance, like these video games, just like alcohol, were depressing my nervous system because I'm sitting in front of a screen, zoning out, zombified, right? So my body was upping itself to counteract it. And so I'm sitting in bed now, off the video games for a couple days, having a panic attack because my body is just in a constant state of panic because that's what it was doing to counteract the depressive effects of the video games, right? This is all just logical, just makes sense, right? I'm not worried about it because I know what's happening. I sit and I think, when did this all start? Like, when did this whole video game thing start? And I thought, well, it kind of started in 2016 because that's when I call my self-improvement initiative, when I quit Hearthstone and quit these video games, started doing more self-improvement. It kind of started then because I was like, I had been coping with negative work experiences with video games. And then I thought, well, no, that's not really true. I remember senior week of college, even after I was about to graduate, but just right before the graduation ceremony, once classes were done, I remember instead of celebrating with my friends, I was in my room part of the time playing video games because I was just addicted to it. So I was like, well, it was happening in college. And then I kept going back and I was like, well, in high school I would play games and watch YouTube videos of games. And I thought, like, in middle school, yeah. And then I thought, oh my God, like, the Game Boy Color came out in 1998. And I vividly remember having a Pokemon game on Game Boy Color in first grade. Which means this has been going on not for like a couple years or not just a 5-week period, but this is a 20-year issue. This is a 20-year habit. And so that's another realization I had is, oh my gosh, this goes back to being 7 years old. No wonder this is an issue for me, right? And so that's really cool. And so the other thing I would encourage you to do is people get scared of looking into their past because they think they have to dig up all these things and like be like, oh, well, my mom said this and my dad said that and my grandparents said this. And then in second grade, Johnny pushed me on the ground and that's why I'm irritable today. Like, you don't need to think about all that. What you want to do is just quickly take a trip back in the past and just see where the pattern started. And the thing is, rather than judging it, you just realize that when you started some of these addictive patterns, it had a purpose. This is another thing that I'm becoming huge on that I don't think people understand is every single behavior you do has a purpose to meet one of your needs. It doesn't matter if it's video games or if it's hard drugs that could kill you. You are doing it because it meets a need and serves a beneficial purpose. Everything you do. And often that's because when you're a kid or when you're just learning things, the world is so messed up that you have to do something kind of maladaptive, like have an addiction, just to get by. And so then our job, right, as we grow up into being adults, and it doesn't matter whether you're 15 right now or 85, you can still grow up right now, okay? Or 95 or 100. It doesn't matter. But what you can do if you want to grow up a little bit, get a little stronger, and get over this, is you go back and look. And I realized, oh my gosh, like, I have a positive association with these games my whole life because they were the thing that kept me sane. Because they were the thing that had logical cause and effect. I thought about this, and I write this in my essay, so if you want to check out the essay format, it's all in there, right? But I thought about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, when I had Pokemon Blue version in first or second grade, I vividly remember like the gyms and the battles and all this, and I remember it being logical. If I wanted to train my Pokemon, I could train them up to beat somebody. And the other characters in the game interacted in logical ways, and I had to defeat them. I had to use hidden machines to push rocks, and I had to, train my Pokemon to beat gym leaders, and I had to adventure and solve puzzles, and it was logical cause and effect. Meanwhile, I'm here in school in first grade in probably some class that's not stimulating my brain, learning some fact that doesn't matter, or learning something that's not stimulating me. So, side note, a lot of people who are really intelligent develop addictions because the real world is not meeting their mental stimulation needs. So if you want to know why people have addictions, it's because the real world is not meeting their needs, but it's often, people think of addiction, it's like, oh, well, they developed a drinking habit because they had a horrible home life. Well, sure, that's probably true for some people, but a significant portion of people like me are developing addictions, and it could be they could develop an alcohol or heroin addiction instead of a video game addiction, are developing addiction because the real world is boring and people aren't using cause and effect and aren't using their full minds, right? We all know that the school systems that we have now, while great, are still a relic of the industrial age hundreds of years ago when they were training workers like cogs in a machine. And they don't really teach you to think critically, and they don't really teach you all the things you need for life skills, right? And so, the school system is not exactly a, wonderful playground for cause and effect learning, but guess what was? Pokemon, even when I was in first grade, right? And then I think about growing up and being in high school. And even in high school, I would have classes that were boring and irrelevant and unstimulating. But when I played Magic the Gathering cards, that was stimulating. And it had cause and effect, and I could solve real problems and feel good about my ability to use my logic to solve a real problem, using the laws of cause and effect. And so that's why I always say, card games have taught me everything I know. Not school, card games, right? I was a great student, but card games have taught me everything I know in life, right? And so I had this positive association. And yet it's still killing me now because this negative video game addiction, it's not real life. And so the thing is, as beneficial as this has been for me, to learn cause and effect and logic, it's obviously becoming maladaptive because it's not real life and my body's just not equipped to do it. Just like your body is not made to drink, 10 drinks of alcohol a day, your liver's gonna die. My body is not made to stare at a video game for 8 hours a day. That's just not what your body is made to do, okay? And while some people can do that and not have as many adverse effects, I can't. My body is not made for that, and a lot of people are not. And so what I'm learning is that I've got to find a way past it, even though it was helpful in the past. But what I realized is this pattern never stopped, right? Not just high school, but college, and not just college, but the workplace. I honestly thought I'm going to do all this and then go to the workplace, and the workplace is going to be this beautiful, logical place where everything makes sense. And then I go to work at good companies, and still there would be incompetent project managers. And honestly, everyone's just doing a rote task. People are not using critical thinking, and most of the work was being wasted. And I just couldn't handle that. It was literally driving me insane. And so I would literally go to do my daily work at a tech company, and I couldn't do it. And then I would turn on a video game. And that was a struggle for me my whole life for the past 20 years. How wild is that? How friggin' wild is that? And so for you, it might not be a video game. It might be social media, just scrolling it, right? Numbing it out. For you, it might be the news, because guess what? When you watch the news, you can feel this cause and effect. You can feel like I'm watching the news and I'm seeing what's happening in the world, and I feel like I can have cause and effect because you're so angry and frustrated at all the bad things happening in the world. You just want to watch the news to feel like you want to argue with the negative people and feel somebody explain it positively. And so where I kind of have ended up, is I've got to ask myself, what is going to have to change for me to conquer my video game addiction, right? I'm on day 3 of my detox right now. I'm an expert at this, and yet I have still failed and fallen back into it over and over again. I'm an expert at detoxing digitally, and yet I'm still failing. So you always got to ask, and I ask this in my essay version, what's going to have to change? What is going to have to change here? How can I change to actually make this work, okay? And one of the things I did realize is that, first of all, I've actually hit a rock bottom now. I know I can extrapolate now, and you got to learn how to extrapolate, right? This is something the real world teaches you sometimes, but that school and stuff, they don't really teach you this. You've got to learn extrapolational thinking, meaning take one thing and relate it to everything else in your life. I can take this one instance of video games making me sick and giving me a rash, and I can easily extrapolate that and turn it into 20 years down the road, I could die of a heart attack because I have a video game addiction. Or 5 years down the road, I could develop ulcers. I mean, all these horrible things can and will happen if I keep going this way. So I finally hit that rock bottom point to where I realized, oh my gosh. And so sometimes in life, I want to urge you to not give up, because a lot of times people are struggling, and one option is to give up. I could have given up. I could have just said, I'm never kicking this addiction. I'm never trying to be a coach. I'm just going to give up and be a vagrant who doesn't ever work and plays video games all day. Screw it all, right? People say that because they don't see a way out. But sometimes to find your way out, you have to actually hit the rock bottom or hit the real world consequence first, and no amount of abstract teaching or whatever can help you with that. And so maybe this will just spark you to notice your rock bottom if you've already hit it or if you're hitting it, right? Spark you to notice it and realize that if something doesn't change, like life's gonna really suck for you and you better change it, right? That's what I'm realizing. And so I have to share more love. I realize I'm hiding my love for the world. I'm hiding my true thoughts, my energy, and I can't, okay? And so I'm not hiding anymore. I'm bringing it all out, the essays, the videos, everything, and making it all free, nothing behind a paywall right now, because I am just working to create this movement, okay? But then the second thing is, I gotta find a way to meet these needs that aren't being met by the real world. Like I said, even from my early days of Pokemon Blue when I was 7 or 8 years old, right? It met a need of logical cause and effect. And the way I have learned to meet that need in real life is by having standards. This is the big realization that's changing my life that I think could change yours too. And it is that instead of going for actions or results, you go for standards. And so let me just explain this real quick, because this could blow your mind, okay? Most people just go on a day-to-day basis doing actions that somebody else tells them to do, right? You're a kid, you do what your parents tell you to do. You go to school, you do what the teacher says to tell you to do. You go to play sports, you do what the coach tells you to do. You go to college, do what the professor says. Then you go to work and do what your boss says. And then you get married and do what your wife says, or your husband, or your spouse, or whatever. And you feel resentful your whole life because you're doing things other people told you to do, but it doesn't feel good on the inside. So that's like the first level people get to. But some people get a little bit wise, and I was one of these people. You get wise and you're like, I don't want to just take actions. This doesn't make sense. I'm going to go for a result. I'm going to try and get something. And so I've spent the past 2 years of my life like worrying about the result of my coaching business, the result of my art business with Preetha, the result of social media, the result of whatever, and even the results of my video game competitions. I wanted to be good at them. And so I would go for results. But, and even like Tony Robbins, one of the great coaches, right, who's right there behind me on that Unleash the Power Within picture. So you see him like going like this, right? Calls himself a results coach. But here's the problem with results is that going for results also just leaves you totally screwed, because results don't make you happy, and going for results is inherently like dependent on other illogical people. And so what do I mean? It's like, yeah, you might say, okay, I'm not just going to settle for anything. I'm going to set a real result I want and go for it. I want to buy $1 million house in the suburbs and be rich, okay? And have a Ferrari or something. I don't know, whatever you want, right? Or I want to have 20,000 followers on social media, whatever it is. And so I would set these goals, right, for results, and you would want results. Here's the problem though, is like I said, reaching a result doesn't make you happy. You have already reached so many results in your life, and they didn't make you happy. Like, imagine you want to get a promotion, right? All you did was worry and worry and worry about that promotion, and then you got it, and you weren't even that much happier, because now you got new stress and new problems. And here's the thing, if you become results-oriented, then when you go for results and get it, all you've done is kind of gotten more responsibility and more crap that illogical life forces are going to mix up for you. So let's say you wanted to be a manager at your company. Well, guess what? You become manager, now you got to deal with even more illogical other managers, and you're suddenly management. You have all these new issues, and things are screwed, and it's just a mess. And on top of that, to get to be a manager, you had to just worry and stress, and you were worried about what other people thought of you, and you can't control any of that. So all this worrying about results doesn't get you anywhere. It just puts a bunch of pressure on you. And so this is the thing that is present with both going action-based, with just no thinking, just going for actions other people tell you, or going for results, is pressure, okay? This is the key thing that's been destroying my life, and it might be destroying yours, is this idea of pressure, having pressure on you. Meaning, when you go to do something good, like get a promotion, or like, do the dishes, or like start a business, or work out, you feel pressure to do it. Pressure means you're operating from a results or an action mindset. The problem with going action-based is it's just like you have no clue what's going on, and you're totally screwed. Results-based is that you feel like you're always behind. The other problem with results is if you don't have the result yet, then you're unhappy because you don't have it. If you get the result, then you're bored because you have nothing to go for, and you have to pick a new result, which you don't have yet, and so you're unhappy, okay? And so we might say, well, are we all toast? Are we all on the hedonistic treadmill for all life? And the answer is no. There is actually a way out of this that I'm discovering, and it is called standards, okay? So let me explain this idea of having standards, right? Having standards means that you go for the feeling of excellence in the moment of doing something, all right? And so let me explain using the bookshelf behind me. For a long time, I wanted to have a more organized office and a more organized bookshelf. Now you can see my bookshelf right there is organized. It's actually organized by color on the top shelf. Then the middle shelf is black and white with a couple half black, half white books in the middle. And then there's fiction on the bottom shelf. The first two are nonfiction. And so that's sorted, right? That's cool. And I'm going to use this bookshelf as a metaphor to kind of tell you about what standards can get you. So if I was just going action-based, right, here's what I would do. I would look at another life coach and I would say, oh, they have a cool background. I have to do what they do. And instantly I'm mimicking. I'm a worse version of someone else and I'm just trying to mimic them. So I'm like, maybe I'll have a bookshelf in the background and I'll tinker with it. And then I was just constantly anxious about like, what does my bookshelf have? Like, should it look here? Should it be there? Like, can they read it? Where should I put it? What should I display on my bookshelf? All these questions. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And it didn't help anybody to have a bookshelf or not in my background. It was just a bunch of stress. And then I said, you know what? I want more viewers. I want my viewers to think I have a really nice background. So I wanted the result of more Facebook and Instagram viewers, and YouTube viewers, because of my shelf being more organized. But guess what? I never had motivation to do that. Never, ever, ever. And so my bookshelf would be a mess, and I actually just stopped streaming because I was so stressed about needing to organize my bookshelf because it was a mess. And so going for a result just made me feel like I wasn't there yet, but even if I got there, I'd still just be a worse version of somebody else. Okay, so that sucks. But then I went for standards. And I said, you know what? What makes me happy is not getting some followers or something. What makes me happy is like the act of existing in this world with this pristine, beautiful, color-coded bookshelf. And so what I did is I created a bunch of space. I removed all the pressure. I said, there is no pressure. I'm going to spend as much time as I feel like just playing with my bookshelf. And so what I did then is I organized that whole bookshelf. And I felt no pressure, no rush. I took all the books off, and then I thought, I kind of want to color code this. And then I actually did the middle shelf first with the black and white. And I said, I'm going to also code it by height. And so what you'll see, especially on those white books right there, is that they're actually also in ascending order, I'm trying to use my finger, of height there. But here's the thing. I wasn't doing it for a result. And so with each and every book I placed, it was this beautiful, luxurious feeling of adhering to a standard. My standard was these books would go in order, they'd be by color, and they'd go by height, and they'd be extended just the right amount off the bookshelf. But there was no OCD related to this. There was no, like if I don't do this right, nobody's gonna watch. If I don't do this right, it matters. What if I do it right and nobody matters? That wasn't the point. The point was by being this person with these standards for my bookshelf, I already got the dopamine hit, the rush, the high of existence in the moment. And even when my whole room was a mess and I had just placed one book on the bookshelf, in that moment, I was already there. I was already blissfully happy. I was already experiencing this transcendent, beautiful emotion of having a high standard. Because guess what? I knew, instinctively you know, if you hold yourself to a standard of excellence, good things are going to happen. And so I no longer had to worry about the action or the result. I just knew that if I just enjoyed this standard, then everything would work out. And the end result was this perfectly organized bookshelf. But guess what? I organized this bookshelf and it looked exactly like that, but it was right behind me. And so then I started streaming and I realized nobody could see my bookshelf because it was behind me. And if I had been going for a result, I would have thought, well, great, I did all that and nobody watched my video and now my bookshelf isn't even visible. Like, I hate everything, I'm so stressed, right? And then guess what I would have done? I would have opened a video game and done my addictive behavior. Not kidding, right? And you do the same thing in your life. You go for all this and then it doesn't work out. And you're like, well, crap, I did all this, it didn't work. I just need to take the edge off with a drink or with, like a video game or the news or a TV, whatever your addictive thing is, right? Whatever your thing is, or just with my email, right? I just need to take the edge off, right? But instead, since I've been adhering to these standards, guess what? I was like, you know what? Organizing that bookshelf once was really fun. Let's just do it again. And so I actually took the top stuff off. I took every book off, organized them on the floor. I moved the whole bookshelf over to the side where you can see it now, against the wall more. And then I meticulously replaced every single book. But again, that act of doing it was beautiful and fun and enriching because my mind was activated. And here's the whole point, is in daily life, like modern life, everything is systemized for you and you're just like, since everything's done for you, right? From school to work to everything else, and so many systems are in place kind of pushing you in a certain way, you don't actually get to use your own problem-solving mentality. And since as a human you're built for that, you're going haywire and getting all this internal friction. because you're not using your human mind, okay? And so the solution is not to get a result, right? Or to achieve total mastery over your own life and like have control of everything and be a billionaire Jeff Bezos who owns everything, right? Okay? If he's going for a result and he gets all that, he's still going to be unhappy, okay? The dude's happiness is the same as yours. It's based on, are his everyday standards for life and happiness in place, right? And so what I learned is that it was that thrill of placing each book that was just the same as the thrill I got when I played video games, right? That rush. Because in Pokemon Blue version, even in first grade, I knew that if I trained my Pokemon to level 15 instead of 12, I could beat Brock's gym and beat his rock Pokemon better, you know? And I knew that because I knew the cause and effect. Same way here. I knew that I could place every book the right way and get it all there. And then when I had to restart and do it all over again, it was like, awesome. I get to do the same thing over again. That's great. Okay? And so what you want to be doing, you don't have to be like me and be a life coach and spend 8 hours a day doing all this stuff. But even if you do a regular job that you're not happy with, or regular school you're not happy with, or whatever the heck it is, right? Whatever you do, even if you do that, you can start carving out these little moments to have standards, okay? One more quick example. After I take a drink, I'm going to give you one more example about my personal life. My water bottle leaks, so every time I drink, it just falls on me a little bit. Other example is I track everything I eat now, and I'm having standards with my physical fitness that I've never had before, and it is so fun. Now, if you're anything like me, right, like I'm a pretty like fit guy. Like I'm not in great shape, but I'm not in terrible shape. I'm in like okay shape, and I've always been an athlete. I'm wearing a center tennis shirt, you know? But I spent all this time in the past looking in the mirror, wondering, ooh, am I gaining weight? Am I losing weight? I had all these, I had all these worries, right? Now I don't have those because I use standards. This is, again, like breaking news. Like this week, I have standards about my health. I use an app to track everything I eat without any pressure. So my app is called Chronometer. It's up there, right? And so it's called Chronometer, and it tracks everything I eat. So like, here's everything I ate on July 22nd, right? You can't actually see it, but it's like tap water, my electrolyte mix, everything. Every single thing I ate is on here. And so the beauty of this is I'm having the standards of someone who's caring about their health, but it doesn't matter if I do it perfect, right? The point is by just letting my mind go on this and letting it have standards, it's automatically going to adjust and get better. So when I see, like, to the detail of Mexican blend cheese 0.38 cup graded, like, how did I come up with 0.38 of a cup? I don't know, right? And I'm ordering a food scale that's coming in tomorrow. But I didn't force myself to eat these things. I just measured what I was eating and had standards, right? Just like I didn't force myself to organize that shelf. I just said, would it be fun? Like, let's try it, okay? And then on today's the 23rd, I actually pre-filled all of the stuff I'm eating so that I would follow it today. So now I don't have to worry about my weight because I started just by measuring and letting my mind work for fun. And then my mind was working for fun. And it was like, hey, like, I'm getting pretty good at this health stuff. Woody, if you would just let me tweak some things, you could get like a ripped six-pack if you just changed this fat and this protein around and had these meals. And so now it's 3:54 p.m. and I've eaten, probably half the calories that I had been eating, but I'm just as full and healthy because I ate more protein, because I let my body have high standards for measurement, and then after it had the high standards, it just went and got the results by itself, just magically. I just had the passing thought yesterday, hey, like, no pressure, but what if I ate more protein and didn't eat as many calories, but more protein of the calories? And then boom, it worked. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. So how cool is that? That's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. So from everything from my background here to my physical fitness, right? All this. And to be honest, since I've been on my 5-week video game bender, I've gained some weight back. I was on this fitness routine, and for the past month, that has been toast, and I've gained all the weight back. So my self-esteem is not super high, but my standards and my self-respect are high because I just have these standards. And so that's my idea for you, is that it's actually understimulation caused by the fact that society, like modern society, has so many things already decided for you that you feel like you have little agency and you're constantly trying to get things right instead of trying to use your own extrapolational thinking, right? The way you solve that is by working on your personal life, but not by going for some result, like not by going for a six-pack or going for a perfect background for your videos or perfect YouTube channel. It's by choosing to have high standards, and if you're doing the standards right, because if you're doing standards, the moment you do it, you're in blissful state of happiness. Because what you want is not to have a perfect bookshelf. What you want is the feeling of that pristine, beautiful bookshelf and just loving on it. And even if your bookshelf is a mess, but you organize one book, you already start to get that feeling, right? You already start to get it, okay? And if you've ever been on drugs or something, it's kind of the same way with drugs, right? You're just creating a healthy internal drug mechanism, right? You're hypnotizing yourself to a healthy internal thing, right? Like, for example, like I'll just be transparent. When I was in college, I would occasionally like drink a beer or something. And so I'd be sitting on like a couch at a party and I would open a beer, and just from taking one sip of a beer, the alcohol hadn't gotten in my system yet, but I felt a transformation because I'd had one little tiny sip, and then like my body had said, oh, I'm getting the thing I want. That's how drugs get you, right? Is you just take one little sip, you're toast, right? But the positive drug of like high standards is that it's what you're meant to do. And so your body is meant to be kind of addictive. You're not meant to be some blah robot that has no preferences, no opinions, no addictions. You are meant to have an addictive personality, especially if you're really smart or really like fast moving. It's just that what you're meant to be addicted to is health and high standards and cause and effect. And you thought that since the world was so messed up and confusing and crazy, that the only place you could get high standards and cause and effect was in a drug, right? Because the cause and effect is pretty simple with alcohol. You want a high standard? Drink a bunch of alcohol. You'll get an effect, right? But in real life, it's more complicated. Doesn't have to be if you understand that you need to focus on your personal life, but not the results you want in your personal life. This is where I've been going wrong for years, even when on my personal improvement journey. Not for the results, for the standards. I do this now. Things I used to hate, I love. Like yesterday I talked about, or maybe the day before, I talked about shaving, right? I talked about shaving, and I had a blast shaving when I used to hate it because I had high standards, and I didn't want to be clean shaven. I wanted the feeling of like seeing myself be clean and like good, and like I wanted that feeling in that moment. And so from the first shave, even when there was hair flying everywhere and it felt like, chaos in the bathroom, it felt good to take that first action, right? Or cleaning the house. Like now when I'm doing the dishes, it's not like, oh, I want the dishes to be done, so I gotta do them. That sucks. It's like I want the feeling of a well-managed, clean, logical household. And from the moment I pull that, I start doing the dishes when I unload the dishes by unloading the silverware. And from the moment I pull that silverware tray and set it out to put it back in the silverware drawer, it's like this beautiful, like, oh, like I'm doing it. Like this is it. This is that feeling. And so that's my advice for you, that I will be exploring more and coaching on more, is work on your standards. This is so cool. It's such an amazing way you can be happier and feel better, is if you work on your standards. So guys, that's it for today. Work on your standards. And remember, I've pushed it back to August, but like this last month has just given me the final ammunition for Mental Health 101, where I'm going to teach you one of the key things, which is called mental worry paradox and how it affects your life. I'm going to teach you this in Mental Health 101. I'm going to start the official lives in August, but I'm going to keep doing teasers and little things for you. And so, I will also just say that I wasn't worried when I went through this last health crisis or mental health crisis, when I went through my video game crisis. I wasn't worried at all. Everybody around me was worried. They were like, what do you got a rash? You're sick. You need to go to the doctor. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go to the doctor and stuff, but none of my focus was there. My focus was on, wow, like, I'm still going to be okay after this. Everything's going to turn out fine. And guess what? Everything turned out fine. And so now my body and mind have evidence. Like, wow, I was addicted to video games. I got sick. I got a fever. I got a COVID test, came back negative. I got a rash. Now I got to go get allergy tests. All this stuff happened to me. And yet the whole time I thought, I think I'll be fine. And I was fine. And I've now taught myself that things work out fine, which they do. And so I'm going to teach you how to master that. Master overcoming the mental worry paradox. The paradox where when we constantly worry, we think that it's actually the worry that's helping us, when the worry is never helping us. Okay, I'm going to teach you about that and much more in Mental Health 101. So if you look in the description, you can just hang out, like go sign up for the email list, right? Watch my video. I'm going to be redoing all the promo videos, making them even better, more beautiful, but only because I have high standards. And I'm going to do that in alignment with all my other stuff. So guys, I had fun today. I recorded for 45 minutes. I normally don't talk for this long. My throat's hurting a little bit, but it was a blast talking to you. Go check out the happiness essays, guys. Listen, I love you so much. I love life so much, and I know that we can all be doing so much better. Part of the reason I'm constantly putting the world on blast and saying the school system is failing us, the work system is failing us, the religious systems are failing us, family systems are failing us, right? It's not because people are bad. It's because if we had some higher standards and we were logical, right, we could all get off all our addictions, our video game addictions, your whatever rumination addictions you have, physical drug addictions. We could get off all of them and get onto the addiction to high standards and love and happiness. And once you get addicted to expressing love, you're never going to go back, okay? Once you get addicted to expressing love, you will not go back. All right, I'm going to teach you how to do that. We're going to do it together. And so I'm so excited that you've been on this journey with me, that you've been here. I just love you all so much. And we've got so much to do. Man, like, we're gonna do so much great stuff together. I'm honored to have you here. I'm honored to be able to share my personal life with you and to provide you this service, and it's been so fun. So we'll see you next time. Have a great day, guys. Don't forget to check out the podcast, Mental Health 101, all that other stuff, but mostly just sending you tons of love. See you later.